What is up and welcome back. Today we're talking about chapter 53 of the Dragon Ball Super manga, and you're going to want to subscribe to the channel as I cover the Dragon Ball Super manga every single month. Now this chapter gets right into the talking. I'm going to call this the talkie chapter of the Moro arc, and the pace of this just kind of feels like it grinds to a halt to make way for so much freaking talking. But we'll get into actually what happens, and there's some very interesting things that happen, especially later in the chapter and once we get onto the action. And I got something to say, like Piccolo is the action star of this chapter, but with that positive, we have some big negatives with that, and we'll get into that in a second. So we start off with the Z Fighters at Kami's lookout. Really Krillin, the only one to show up because Ten Shinhan doesn't have a cell phone. Now, Bulma has some interesting commentary here. Who doesn't have a cell phone these days? Well, I'll tell you who: martial artists who don't partake in luxuries such as those technological wonders. So that was a really stupid excuse for Ten Shinhan not to be there. Like, just freaking power up or use telepathy. There are a myriad of ways to contact Tien. Like, come on, guys. Like, this is kind of a sorry excuse to minimize the number of Z Fighters there. But then Krillin asks, hey, why don't we get Yamcha? And I'm like, yeah, get freaking Yamcha, why not? But then they completely ignore that and they're like, oh, Jocko's here. What the hell is wrong with Yamcha? I mean, I know he's kind of like made for a joke these days, but he's still a strong fighter. Come on, like, as far as we know, he's still super strong. So get freaking Yamcha in here. I'd love to see him back and fighting. Kind of feel sorry for the guy. They didn't even invite him to the Tournament of Power. So there's a lot of talking here. They're like, okay, well, here's Eska, and that was a nice little moment. Eska meeting Dende, and they're real happy to see each other. But then it's followed by an extremely sad moment that Piccolo, him, Eska, and Dende are the last Namekians alive. Now that is some sad stuff right there, guys. So the Macaroni siblings so they're basically saying, hey, you guys stand no chance against Moro, which they don't. Jocko's like, hey, I better confirm who's coming from the convicts, and I'm like, how's the Galactic Patrol gonna determine that? Like, isn't Moro's people like all over the place? How is the Galactic Patrol gonna narrow it down to these specific 3 people? So that was, I don't know, that was kind of weird to me. But then we actually see the 3 people that are coming, and it's this panda dude, Sonic the Hedgehog, and freaking Not Hit. So this panda guy just keeps going on and on about being hungry and needing food as he shoves his face full of these bars. And he's like, I'm tired of these freaking bars, man. But I guess it amounts to something as they decide to make a pit stop on the way to Earth, and that leads to allowing them to get to Earth much faster a little bit later on in the chapter. So we get back to the Z Fighters, and Jocko is the coward that he is, decides to be like, 7-3 is with them, I'm out, man. So it turns out that these guys were captured by Maris. So I'm thinking, okay, these guys, these fighters probably don't stand much of a chance against them, but Piccolo's there, so maybe they're okay. But unfortunately, Gohan had another freaking college conference to go to, so he's running late. But as we see, that didn't really amount to very much at all. So they asked Jocko to lay down some exposition for everybody reading. So he explains 7-3's powers and abilities. And I know I called this guy Sonic the Hedgehog before, but now they're really on Sonic the Hedgehog's planet, fighting all these hedgehog dudes. He grabs the neck of one of them, and that's kind of how he takes or copies them, and he can copy them for 30 minutes, which is a very interesting idea and a really cool way to get bad guys up to the level of the Z Fighters, So 7-3 has these hedgehog things on him, shooting needles. That didn't sound right, did it? Shooting hedgehog needles at the hedgehogs. So they just massacre these guys, and then it turns out that for some reason these hedgehog aliens can create portals. It seems like a very random ability for these guys, but it allows the 3 convicts to get to Earth immediately as opposed to 10 days, causing quite a cliffhanger moment, so to speak. So they talk for a little bit longer, and they stand around for literally 3 pages just chatting. And the hedgehog dude's about to kill the macaroni siblings, but Piccolo stops him. And I'm like, oh yeah, Piccolo back in action. But then 7-3, Piccolo he was gonna let the macaroni siblings go for no reason last time, and now he's just freaking standing there with his back to this copy dude, and just he zoops in, he utilizes the opening, grabs Piccolo's neck, and basically it's kind of over for Piccolo now. And we'll get into why in a second. The dude fires off a special beam cannon into the ground of the sanctuary. Now this place is just getting wrecked, man. Again, like this thing can't get a break. It was destroyed in the Majin Buu saga. Speaking of the Buu saga, the panda dude pulls a Majin Buu and just balls himself through the freaking thing. But 7-3 stretches and knocks Jocko off. Of course, we know that he has jet boots, so he should be fine, but I guess Piccolo apparently doesn't know that. But that gives them an excuse to fly down and then continue their fight on the ground. Now, this guy's stretching out, so Piccolo decides to stretch out too, and it's like, Piccolo, I don't know, Piccolo doesn't seem all that smart lately, you know? He's, like, if the guy's stretching out, wouldn't Piccolo do something else to counter that, not counter that with the same exact move? I don't know, maybe he was hoping to smash him into the ground, but this guy is basically now equal in power to Piccolo. Furthermore, why, if they're equal in power now, he copied him when he has his weighted clothing off, right? So his power, I would think, would be equal to Piccolo with his weighted clothing, but maybe that doesn't factor into it and it's just Piccolo. But I thought it was weird that he didn't take his clothing off here, so that he can have as much advantage as he could. But it is pretty cool. I mean, I really like the camera angles. The action is really cool, and these guys are just going at it. Like, they're pretty dead even for a second. Then the hedgehog guy kind of engages Jocko, which is kind of cool. I would rather see Yamcha or Tien fight. That would have been pretty cool, but now you got these 2 short guys fighting. So this page right here with Piccolo and the android dude doing their signature moves and exploding is probably my favorite page from the chapter, because it just communicates everything that you need to, and it's full of intensity, and it's full of Piccolo's struggle, and I'm loving this. But as we find out, this guy has unlimited stamina. Come on, man. Does Piccolo always have to go against the unlimited stamina dudes? So at least from this point on, it's very apparent that Piccolo is gonna lose this fight as Krillin fights Panda Dude up top, and this is when he actually does his ball thing and destroys or makes a giant hole through the sanctuary. But we go back to Piccolo and the android, and they're doing the special beam cannon again. Why don't you do the Hellzone grenade? Like, do something other than the special beam cannon, because the special beam cannon is a really cool move, but it is best utilized when you bring it out when you don't have any other options, really. So I feel like the special beam cannon has been too much used by Piccolo in Dragon Ball Super. But at least the art is very much on point here. You see the struggle that's in Piccolo's face. His veins are popping out, and the intensity of this special beam cannon's shot. But the android gets the better of him, and you think Piccolo is just killed, and Jocko's like, was he blown to bits? No, Nerd Man comes to save the day. And you know what? For once, I would just love Piccolo to get into a massive struggle with an enemy and a really good fight like this and come out on top. You know, the only fights Piccolo seems to be able to win are against opponents that are way weaker than him, like the Macaroni siblings. Now this guy poses a major threat, and he is equal to Piccolo minus the stamina stuff, so it would have been so cool if Piccolo thought of some way past this guy's copy quirk, or was able to last through the 30 minutes and just pull out a win. And then Gohan can fight Saganbo or one of the higher ups than the copy dude. So that part is left out of cliffhanger as we cut to Maris and Goku trying to Ultra Instinct train, and Gohan is just getting wrecked. Oh my god, like Maris, we still don't get any answers at all from him because the focus is more on the Earth guys, but Maris is just laying the beat down on Goku, and they decide to kind of try to mimic his life or death feelings in the tournament of power against Jiren. So that should be very interesting. Goku's like, yeah, come at me with the intent to kill. So that actually sounds like some very intense stuff, and I'm hoping that next time we'll actually get some answers for who the heck Maris is, which is one of the few questions that need answering in the Moro arc if you haven't checked that video out. But we leave the chapter off with Vegeta meditating with this really long stick up his bum, and the Yardrat explaining that Goku was on this stick for 150 days, and Vegeta does not like that at all. Furthermore, the Yardrat's like, you have even less balance than Goku did. So Vegeta, needless to say, is very frustrated because he came there to learn a technique, and if he's gonna have to be on the stick for 150 days, Moro is out there just wrecking the crap out of the galaxy. So he really wants this technique, and he really wants to utilize this technique to go and beat Moro. So that is all of my thoughts on the chapter. Obviously, drop your thought waves down in the comments below. As always, thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.